that you wanna bet that I can get you back inside your head before the summer ends, and spread a little love. Just for a little fun, I'll make you come back to me before the rise of every sun. Baby, it's meant to be, I know you got a man, but he don't understand. You're gonna be a heartbreaker, you're such a love taker. So just suck me in and you can toss me like a cigarette, 'cause I just wanna be a bad habit, yeah. Rhythm in our love, it's impressive, excessive. You can't make this stuff up. My chest beats, it's restless, wakes the neighbors up above. Yeah, baby, come and show me love. Baby, come and show me love, because you're gonna be a heartbreaker. You're such a love taker. So just suck me in and you can toss me like a cigarette, 'cause I just wanna be a bad habit, yeah.
Take a one-way ride, steal us away to find a place we can hide. It wouldn't take much to spear overnight, just to give into the need and leave it all behind.
'Cause I know that you know that I know that you want me. You told me, now show me, come blow me away. 'Cause I know that you know that I know that you want me. You told me, now show me, come blow me away. You're gonna be a heartbreaker, you're such a love taker. So just suck me in and you can toss me like a cigarette, 'cause I just wanna be a bad habit, yeah. You're gonna be a heartbreaker, you're such a love taker. So just suck me in and you can toss me like a cigarette, 'cause I just wanna be a bad habit, yeah. Suck me in and you can toss me like a cigarette, 'cause I just wanna be a bad habit, yeah.
Welcome to Inside the Numbers with the People's Pundit. Yeah, good morning and happy Friday. Let's have a little fun today. We'll hit everything, of course, and we'll do our Q&A, but it is Freewheeling Friday, so let's be a little light about this. Update on the polling project. I'm going to get started this weekend, so if you haven't contributed and you can, go ahead and contribute or share it with friends, share it around. But, you know, they're going to move fast on some of the issues that we talked about. So, and by the way, speaking to some other pollsters, they're crafting some questions that are a bit similar. I never give them how I'm going to craft it, but they come to me and say, how would you ask this? What do you think about that? And I'm like looking at a couple of them and saying, well, that sounds pretty close to what we're talking about. So we're going to get it started now, and we'll make this a quarterly thing. That's all right, Lord. We'll make this a quarterly thing if that's what it's got to be. All right. So go ahead and do that. You can. It's in the video description, but we made it real easy. It's bigdatapoll/public-polling-project. bigdatapoll.com/public-polling-project. All right. And the rest of it will be up there, but it was showing last names. So we took the donor board down, which hopefully we'll get that worked out today. All right. And, of course, everybody from the locals community, thanks for joining us. Don't forget to ask your Q&As, all right, when we get there. So I got a clip, and instead of maybe just going into my own personal rant on it, maybe I should just show the clip first. But before I do, think back to the episode, The Perversion of Science and Data. For those of you who have been watching for a long time, it doesn't matter if it's public opinion polling. It doesn't matter if it's economic news. By the way, we got some really bad economic news yesterday. The jobless claims number sucked, but that's another story. All right. 70,000 higher than the consensus forecast. Again, it rose again. I thought all this money was supposed to be flooding into people, Laura, and it was whatever. I digress. All right. Whether it's economic reporting under the era of Donald Trump, which is supposed to just be hardline reporting. These are the numbers. That's it. There's no debate over job reports and jobless claim numbers and consumer confidence indexes and small business confidence indexes and home builder confidence indexes and house price index. I mean, there is no debate. We have certain levels. We have certain trends. We know what to measure them by and against. Are they better or worse? Are they at an all-time high, an all-time low? This is not subjective. It's objective. And now the scientific community, no different. Although I'm not sure that it ever was. I can look back and I can say, I remember a time when pollsters did their best jobs and they're not doing this on purpose. I can remember that time. I know it existed at one point. Were they always liberal, or did the vast majority of them lean liberal? Yeah, but their job mattered a bit more than their ideology, right? Their track record mattered more. They wanted to be right. Not because of who they supported, but because of their professional ethic. It's a little something called dignity and integrity. They wanted to be right for those reasons. Not because they wanted to give a fundraising boost to their preferred candidate, or because they wanted to depress turnout for their opposed candidate, or because they refused to acknowledge problems in the industry that everybody knows exists, or now use them as a crutch, as an excuse for giving the results that they wanted. I know there existed that time. I'm not sure there ever existed a time in the medical community where there wasn't a perversion at some level. I don't know. I don't work in it. But I can tell you now there is. Financial reporting, I remember a time when you just simply got empirical data reported to you objectively. I know that existed.
A long time ago.
It did. But it did, right? Mm-hmm. I can't speak about the medical community. But think back to that episode, the perversion of science and data. Because we talked about this. There's no industry where any kind of data researcher, whatever it may be, just hand you the numbers. We have a little saying over here. I put it in my Twitter. It's been in my Twitter profile for a long time. Data don't lie. People do. Now, people can take data and skew it and fudge it or interpret it a certain way. Sure. But it still says what it says. It can be perverted by the collection, how it was collected, methodology. But it should still be interpreted largely in the same way. Unless you have an agenda. Now we're at a point where I said we would be during the episode of Perversion of Science and Data, which the lack of data is creating a vacuum for just like infinite speculation. And that's what we saw yesterday. And bureaucrats this, for those of you who don't know, Dr. Fauci got in front of another doctor who happens to also be a U.S. senator. And he couldn't because, look, I hate to break this to everybody, but most lawmakers, they're dumb. They're not smart. They can barely work technology. They don't understand how the internet works. They don't really have a professional skill set. Many of them have largely been politicians their entire lives. They have no skills, no specialized skill set. And it allows some of these witnesses to go in front of these hearings, and these hearings just become circuses and jokes. And it's been like this for a long time. Where Mark Zuckerberg or Jack Dorsey can get in front of these 70-year-old white men and talk circles around them because they don't know what the hell they're talking about. They don't know. So it's unique. It's unique when we see something like we saw yesterday, which is a doctor who has been BSing everybody for the better part of a year, if not almost a year. Mm-hmm. He has been BSing everyone at every turn because he either A, does not have the information that he claims to have, B, has it but lies about it, or C, really just decides what to tell you based on what's best for him at the given time or day or month or whatever. Just like don't wear masks. Masks don't work. Now they work. You got to wear them. Wear 2 masks. Not enough to wear 1 mask. By the way, when I'm at a baseball game, don't expect me to wear my mask. Anthony Fauci is a two-faced hypocrite and a complete joke. And I've said this before. The man is a walking platitude. And we saw this yesterday. Let's play this clip real quick.
No evidence that there are significant reinfections after vaccine. In fact, I don't think we have a hospitalization in the United States after the 2-week period after the second vaccination. We don't have a death in the United States.
You're not hearing what I'm saying about variants. We're talking about wild type versus variants.
And what proof is there that there are significant reinfections with hospitalizations and death from the variants? None in our country. 0.
Well, because we don't have a prevalent of a variant yet. We're having one. Can I finish? We're having 117 that's becoming more dominant.
Your policy based on conjecture.
No,
it
isn't based on conjecture.
Variants, so you want people to wear a mask for another couple years.
No,
you've been vaccinated and you parade around in 2 masks for show.
No,
you can't get it again. There's virtually 0% chance you're going to get it, and yet you're telling people that have had the vaccine, who have immunity. You're defying everything we know about immunity by telling people to wear masks who've been vaccinated.
No.
Instead, you should be saying there is no science to say we're going to have a problem from the large number of people being vaccinated. You want to get rid of vaccine hesitancy? Tell them they can quit wearing their mask after they get the vaccine. Okay. You want people to get the vaccine? Give them a reward instead of telling them that the nanny state's going to be there for 3 more years and you got to wear a mask forever. People don't want to hear it. There's no science behind it.
Well, let me just state for the record that masks are not theater. Masks are protective. And we
have immunity there, theater. If you already have immunity, you're wearing a mask to give comfort to others. You're not wearing a mask because of any science.
I totally disagree with you.
Dr. Fauci, if you...
Well, you can totally disagree all you want, but you actually didn't give a response. That was a platitude. That was your virtue signaling DC bureaucrat platitude nonsense. From a man who is so-called man of science. What they are talking about right there is forget about the issue of mask wearing, which I'll also tackle in a little bit. If you want to wear a mask to make you feel better and to make the people around you feel better, by all means, go ahead and do it. But understand this. Any chart line, any trend line in looking at infections, plot them on a chart. Doesn't matter what state, what country, what region. There is no evidence in that chart. And when you look at just infections, there is no evidence to support mask wearing. Why? Probably because even if it does work, which some doctors have, I'm not a doctor, but some have written us in detail about the size of viral particles to over my head. But even if it did, we may not understand how to wear them properly. Just looking at a quick sidetrack here. A stupid Humana commercial we were watching before. They're looking over the box, the testing kit. They're both wearing masks and drinking coffee at the table and talking. She drinks the coffee, touches the end of her coffee mug, touches the Humana box, and then gives it to the woman. You just made the mask pointless. You touched the part where you put your mouth on the coffee cup, lady. This is a Humana commercial. Healthcare. But putting it aside, the mask issue, what they are talking about is the evidence for reinfections. You had the virus, now you got the virus again. And then whether or not people who are vaccinated still have to wear a mask because of that data from reinfections. First off, what everyone should know right away when we're looking at this reinfection, when we look at the reinfection data, which I'm going to give you in a second, even pre-vaccine, which is probably more important to look at this moment. The bottom line is there's massive problems with their testing regime. This is world data we're going to be looking at, and we have all heard and seen the stories about bogus or faulty testing kits. So assuming a positive before it was a true positive is a problem in many parts of the world, even, by the way, in some parts of the United States. Assuming somebody's so-called second positive confirmed positive COVID case is real is already an issue because of the testing regime. And by the way, I just want to hat tip Jordan Schlachtel. He has done good work on this, and I went back and checked his stuff. He's thorough. All right, so in case anybody's ever wondering, a good follow on this, he's a good follow. But if you go back and look at the Worldometer, and then you go and look at the data on reinfections, there were less than 3 dozen. And when I say less than 3 dozen, I'm talking about 30 cases in January. In January, after the first week of January, before the vaccine started to be shipped out in mass and administered, there were less than 36 cases, less than 30, 31, depending if you're, I think it's January 8th. First of all, with that 31, again, we have to assume there were no testing problems, and there were. But let's just give them the benefit of the doubt. Folks, if that is not an irrational fear, 31 confirmed cases of reinfection, that's 0.00. That is 0.00003. That's your risk. If that is not an irrational fear, because all these bureaucracies run to the aid of Fauci yesterday after that hearing and this morning. Well, it's not safe because we don't have enough data. No, you don't have any data. So you're saying you don't have enough. Just like you had no data to call for these shutdowns to begin with, because nobody in the history of human civilization has ever put a forced halt to commerce to stop the spread of a virus by hiding. That has never happened. Dr. Fauci may be the media's hero, but he will go down as one of the biggest idiots in modern American history. The only public health official moron to suggest we do irreparable damage to our children, to our economy, to our mental health, to our social skills, and on and on and on and on, for a policy that was never supported by evidence and never had been enacted in the history of civilization as we know it. And again, what you got from him in front of Rand Paul yesterday was nothing but your crappy virtue signal platitudes, because he didn't have any science. He didn't have any numbers to come back at Rand Paul with. What he's got this morning is the CDC. Who cares? They lied, and they lied in the beginning. We now know the testing regime problem was their fault. So we're supposed to run for the CDC to be an authority? We now know it was not the Trump White House. They gave them bad information. We ever wonder why? Was it intentional? Were you trying to sabotage the administration? Or was it incompetence? Which one was it? Little of both? So now they're supposed to be the authority? You kidding me? Wear a mask, don't wear a mask. I mean, how many times do you have to be duped by these people? How many times? The truth is, he got in front of another scientist, and he called him out. He called BS. That's it. It's that simple. Plain speak. He called BS. And Fauci had nowhere to go. Democrats interjecting, of course, because he looks ridiculous to any thinking person. Let me just say, mask wearing, I totally disagree. Mask wear. First of all, we're talking about a specific issue of reinfection. You're pivoting to mask wearing because you sufficiently scared the hell, irrationally, by the way, you sufficiently scared the hell out of the population. So you think if on that issue, so you think if you race back to that issue, you'll win everyone over after looking dumb. And sadly, because there is so much irrational fear right now, it's its own virus at this point. It's taken on a life of its own. It's infectious. We're infecting each other every step of the way, have been for a year. There's sadly, because of that, he probably did win some people over.
Yeah, that's the real infection.
He's got a corrupt media on his side. He's got a corrupt bureaucracy on his side. but he doesn't have science and data on his side. And eventually, when all of the porn, the panic porn fades away, and all of the irrational fear fades away, and we all wake up from our seemingly never-ending panic slumber, our Fauci-induced coma, people are going to have a reckoning for the damage people like Anthony Fauci have done to our society. You cannot recoup 66% of what children were supposed to learn this year. You cannot recoup whatever they missed out on the year prior. You cannot turn supply chains on and off, and you cannot get back jobs that are permanently destroyed. Something Dr. Fauci called economically inconvenient. Maybe to a government bureaucrat who suckles on the you-know-what of everybody else's hard work is continued shutdown economically inconvenient. Because of course, Anthony Fauci, you don't produce jack you-know-what. You don't do anything. If for the rest of us, you wouldn't even have a paycheck. My taxes pay your paycheck. You do nothing. You produce nothing. You contribute nothing. So excuse us if for the rest of us, economics is health. It is health. And this is the BS about this entire argument. This was never an argument about money or public health. Money is public health. We have decades of evidence on this. As if there's no relationship between rising GDP and quality of life and health, life expectancy. Of course there is. Are we turning back the clock again 8-10 months ago when the fake fact checkers at the AP and PolitiFact were trying to tell us deaths of despair were like imagined? This is it's incredible that we're still here. It's incredible. I guess again, there are just so many people who don't live in the real economy. Or reality. That is reality for the rest of, it's at least most of the country's reality. Right? That's at least because they have their own reality. It's just one day. Their reality is fake though. Mm-hmm. It is fake. Because without the rest of us, they have nothing. They don't have a job. They don't have a house. They don't have income. They don't have wealth. Again, they create nothing. The private sector fuels the public sector. There is no public sector without a private sector. There's no question here of which one came first, the chicken or the egg. Mm-hmm. No, the private sector came first. Period. Anyway, so somebody like a Dr. Fauci gets up against somebody who, can't be rolled by platitudes. And Republicans have been basically eunuchs on this issue. They've had their manhood removed by the media and by whatever friends they have on K Street. Whoever's going to profit from this, telling me this vaccine may cause a lot. He's talking about variants because this is what happened. He really, what he was saying, created this spark under some of these people that have been contacting us. And he's talking about variants. Speaking of variants, there's a lot of concern which nobody's hearing about because the media just doesn't care. It's okay to make an argument when you don't have enough data and argue a negative, basically, right? This is a phony argument. Well, we don't have enough data, so you have to do this. That's the justification for an irrational fear. So you're telling to be, that's right. It's how you keep the fear going. To get somebody afraid of something that may be. Mm-hmm. That may be. Oh, it's possible. Anthony Fauci should know this pretty well because it sounds like the early AIDS epidemic, where everybody was worried about contracting AIDS from the most ridiculous of methods. Maybe that's what he really learned during the AIDS epidemic. How to keep people afraid. But anyway, there's a lot of concern that if you become immune to one strain, or at least this kind of vaccine, mRNA, right? This is not like the antigen method. It's not the same. So if you become immune to this one strain of COVID, that you hinder yourself from other strains. I don't know that that's true. I'm not an MD.
Yeah.
I'm a numbers guy. If there are numbers, unfortunately, that's one of the only things
that supports.
That's one of the only things. Yeah, I mean, you really have to wait. Mm-hmm. That's the sad thing about vaccinations that are developed so quickly like this. The last time we saw a race to create a vaccine, there was a huge class action lawsuit. And like Robert has said a million times, there's a reason why. You can't hold these people accountable for poisoning you later. Nobody else has that protection. Nobody else.
Maybe if they did, they would be more accountable.
Maybe if they did, they would be, but they learned their lesson. Because they raced to meet the needs of a scared public before, got hammered for it because they screwed up and it wasn't safe, and then all of a sudden now they're just, they got their buddies in D.C., that's the problem with the lobby, Laura. That is the problem. They're strong. So when did everyone begin to trust Big Pharma so blindly? I don't know if it's true, but I will say this. It could end up being an irrational fear that your immune system is going to be compromised to other strains. I don't know that there's evidence to support that right now, and it could be an irrational fear. I don't think people should be running around, maybe debating it is one thing. Well, this could be, but not doing what they do, which is, oh my God, don't take the vaccine because it's going to happen to you. That's the same thing. Yeah, that's the same thing as what they're doing. You have to wear a mask even though you're vaccinated. You can't go out even though you're vaccinated. You can't do this even though you're vaccinated. Don't go visit your girlfriend because you're vaccinated. I mean, it's just ridiculous. You know what I fear these dirtbags really want? To break the human connection. This is what has made us so strong. Because small, tight-knit, autonomous communities, which begin, by the way, brace yourself, lefties, at the family level. They begin at the family unit. A strong family means a strong community. A strong community means a strong township, city, whatever you want to call it, county, right? That equals a strong state, which expands to a strong nation. Exactly. And I worry that destroying the human connection, which is something, sadly, was a promise of like social media, that, well, we can keep us all connected even though we're not, but it didn't. And it had the adverse impact on what I think even early believers thought this was going to, I don't think Mark Zuckerberg thought he would create this a community like this. I really don't. I think I've heard him speak.
This is how I see it. I think he looked for the easy connection. So the easy connection now makes us lazier to see one
That's
another,
what has happened. In fact, that has weaker. Yeah. And then you take the social skills away from children that are learning. Could you imagine compounding our generational problems with not learning proper social skills when we were young?
Oh, forget about
We'd be monsters, Laura. Yeah. We'd be inhumane monsters. We're already halfway to barbaric. I mean, so
look at how desensitized children
That's
are.
right. Already. I mean, look.
I mean, did you ever see a tampon commercial at 8 o'clock?
I mean,
7 or
I'm
6?
not going to get into census stuff like that. I know, but
desensitize the whole entire
it
world.
is.
And then when
makes
you
me
don't
think
have
of
a strong family.
Makes me think of the Grinch.
Oh yes.
But he's joking, but it's not really a joke. And he's like kids these days, so desensitized from movies and video games. I mean, in the end, it really is just a simple thing about the human connection keeps us stronger. And if you're not, that's why jail is a punishment. And that's why in jail, solitary confinement is a strict, draconian punishment. Because we're human, we're social, we need to interact with each other, and we're not thinking about the psychological damage that we are, long-term psychological damage that we are doing to ourselves as social creatures who live in a whether you're interacting in a small group like a family in your home, or you're interacting on a larger level. I mean, churchgoers, and I'm not Bible thumping here. Don't get worried, secular people. Churchgoers understand what I mean by fellowship, right? So it's healthy, right? Laura's over. I bet you wanted to say something along the same lines. How important fellowship was with each other, and that has nothing to do with religion. Christ was merely recognizing that we are social animals, and it is important to keep our humanity, to be around one another and to care for one another. We're creating this distant, horrible thing with callous idiots like Dr. Fauci, callous bureaucrats becoming deities, like almost like deities to people like Jake Tapper and all these other idiots on CNN and all these other news outlets who tell you just believe everything he says. Well, which Dr. Fauci am I supposed to believe? The Dr. Fauci you paraded out with Jerome to tell us masks don't work at the beginning of this thing, or the Dr. Fauci now, the one who said don't worry about it, it's not infectious, or the one who said we need to destroy our economy because we're all gonna die? The Dr. Fauci who told Donald Trump that if we don't shut it down, we could be looking at a low end of 500,000 deaths and a high end of 2.4. Oops, we're there anyway. Or, which one? Which Dr. Fauci? The one who praised Donald Trump for closing the border, or this Dr. Fauci now? Which Dr. Fauci do you want me to listen to?
Jekyll or Hyde?
I mean, this is just unbelievable. It's incredible. For this Napoleon complex turd, we're going to sacrifice the core of ourselves, who we are?
I mean, I want to bring up, you remember when we
Come
went
on,
to
man.
Point USA and we were in the elevator and the older couple, we were there with Jack and his wife, right? It was me, you, Jack, and his wife, and we were all talking.
Yep.
And the older couple walks into the elevator and they're just watching us in amazement. And they said, it's been a long time since I've been in an elevator where people were talking.
Yeah.
Versus looking
I
at
do
their phone.
remember that.
How sad is that?
I do remember that. And sadly, you know what some of this is? They race us as a society into these things, and we don't have the proper discussion about them first. And that's what happened with the pandemic. Even in the era of technology, no one was going to put the genie back in the bottle, but we didn't have these conversations about what it might do to an 11-year-old girl to give her a cell phone, right? What does it mean when, look, Laura and I routine, or at least we try to do date nights, okay? We try to do date nights. And that means, do I have to take a call if it's an important client or something like that? Yeah, I mean, I'll say, oh, Laura, this is so-and-so. And even she'll say, okay, take 5 minutes and take it, tell them. But I'm not going to spend a hand-holding session. I'm out with my wife. We'll call you tomorrow or later, whatever. We go out. And every damn time we go out, there are two, right? Yeah, there are couples, like, they're not talking to each other.
They're sitting across
They're not
from each
they're
other.
just they're sitting across from each other. This one's on Facebook. This one's doing his email. She's on Facebook talking to a girlfriend. Like, we didn't have these conversations. What are you doing then? What are you doing?
Other than wasting money.
Spending $150 at Longhorn Steakhouse to not enjoy each other's company. I mean,
Why'd you get away from everything to just bring everything with you?
Rewind the clock, not to date myself or anything, but rewind the clock. That didn't happen.
20 years ago.
We have to tell with young children. We have to tell young children about life, what life was like before this. Why are you FaceTiming your friend who lives up the road? Go hang out.
Go outside.
Go outside. And it's like,
yes, pollen is a real
I just
thing.
wanted to ask her something. Well, go ask her. I mean, my God. I mean, it's just incredible. But we have these things before we have conversations. But go ahead.
No, especially even like when our son had a friend over.
Oh, you weren't figurated.
Oh,
Now
sorry.
you are.
When our son had a friend over, right? Great. Good times. Love the social interaction. They were both on their phones. I went into the room and I said, give me your phones.
What are you doing?
I took their phones.
What are you doing?
And I said, you could have them when you were ready to leave the house.
Yeah, our son is older, so it was, unfortunately, I resisted it as long as we could. But it's
middle school is
it's that time. You got to know where they are, and the rules are the rules. You don't pick up I'll
Don't
take
worry,
it from
I
you.
low jacked my son's phone.
Oh, they're all gonna get low jack. We were just talking about this today. We were watching. It's like really, really early in the morning. There are reruns of like Reba on, and her younger daughter. It was time for her to. She had a boyfriend, and she was hiding it from mom. And it was kind of funny because I knew immediately it was she got a boyfriend, right? And that turned out to be the case. But we were talking about this. Our daughter's not there yet, thank God, and I'm in no rush. But everybody's got to get low jacked in this day and age. Look, you want your privacy? Then when you're older, you
Turn
get a job.
18, move out of my house.
You
there
get
you
it.
go.
You know, that's it. When you get older, you get a job. You can buy your own cell phone and pay your own monthly cell phone bill, and then you don't have to worry about me having an app on it letting me know where you are and what you're doing.
And what searches you're searching.
Or what searches.
Yeah.
As a matter of fact, I just got a report on well, I don't want to say his name, but I just got a report on our son before.
Yeah.
I did. And this is how much internet time he's spending. This is what he's doing.
This is what
These
he
are the
was-
apps he played. Yep. And that's just the
And
way
they
it
know
is.
it. And
Yeah,
they
they know
know
it.
it.
That's part of. Look, that's it.
Because
that's
it
part
keeps
of the
them
deal.
accountable.
That's part
If
of the
your
deal.
children know that you're snooping around all the time, because I'll just walk into his room,
Yep.
sit down on his computer, and he's like, oh, here we go again. And I'll just go through the history of his computer and just make sure that everything is copacetic on
Right.
his computer. And he knows if I see anything that's been deleted or time gaps between those searches, that he's grounded. So he doesn't do it.
And I just say this, you don't really, because it's 11:52 already. Long story short, don't substitute a friend for a phone, and don't substitute a brain for Dr. Fauci, because you can think for yourself. All right. I mean, look. By the way, look at that. 62% of Americans expect this mask wearing thing
Moron.
to end. What? And by the way, again, which Dr. Fauci? I thought we were supposed to go back to normal when we had a vaccine. Remember that? When can we return to normalcy? Oh, maybe in the spring. Here comes the spring. Here's Easter. Americans, we're not there yet. Donald Trump had a problem with that. And he said, remember, we cannot let the cure be worse than the disease. And Dr. Fauci would undermine him every step of the way. And then came it by the summer. We may not be able to return to normal until there's a vaccine. So what happens? Donald Trump puts this incredible private-public partnership together. I know because I spoke to people from Pfizer. This was not possible without Donald Trump and Operation Warp Speed. Not possible. And by the way, we're going to find out whether it was smart. Because any vaccine developed this quickly, there has never been a coronavirus vaccine before, ever. There's definitely never been a vaccine that's been developed this quick.
Yes.
So I'm just, you guys do what you want with your body. It's your body. This is not what we're doing here. Just to be clear. Personally, I'm not getting it. I have no underlying health conditions other than a broken hip from the military, which
works.
But it certainly doesn't put me at risk to COVID. I have no underlying. I'm not going to risk. To me, in my own thinking, is that I have a greater risk of doing something to myself from an unknown. It is. To me, it's unknown than I do if I was to catch COVID, which I may not have it already. Because when COVID first broke out, just to let you guys know, as no shocker, I travel a lot. And when COVID first broke out, I was really sick and I couldn't shake it. I still worked and,
We all got sick. Really
but
sick
then
in
Laura got
December.
sick.
I got really
My
sick
kids
in
got
December.
sick.
Yeah.
I lost
The
my...
baby
And this is
was
why...
on an inhaler,
This is why I wanted an antibody test, because I lost my sense of smell and taste. I remember telling Laura, like, do not salt this soup. I'm like, I can't taste anything. And I know she does. I'm not a salt person, We're not big on salt, but sea salt, if anything. But yeah, I couldn't taste anything. And then it became more of a story. But, I don't think, to the long story short, I don't think it's worth it for me. You'll have to make up your own decision. It's your body. And you'll have to, but guess what? That you're right, because as far as last time I checked, it's still your decision to do what you want with yourself. Your life,
just make sure
your
the
liberty,
people that you
your
do
property.
get it from take well care of the vaccine, because usually those that are getting ill from the vaccine are not properly maintaining the vaccine's temperature and whatnot. Just
Yeah, we were
FYI.
speaking to somebody the other day who was
nurse.
trying to explain why it's possible
Dangerous.
some of these, because we're, again, this whole idea of reinfections. Well, if you were administered a vaccine and it wasn't done correctly, then that reinfection right there is probably faulty to include when you're calculating the reinfection rate. Why? This is how it was explained to me. They're like, little, what do you get? 3 doses of vials, she said in the vial she had, right? And that it has to be, must be, and this is the Pfizer one, kept at a certain temperature. But because they're like waves of people that are coming in, it never gets put back in there to maintain the temperature. Never. It's not like their fault. It's just the way it is.
Well, that's a good idea.
And it's matter of, this is why it's like a whole question of whether it was practical to make a vaccine for this thing. And by the way, I strongly suspect, and let me just put it this way, not strongly suspect, I have it on good authority that when all this is said and done, we're going to find out some people's behavior were less than virtuous. Like whether or not Dr. Fauci knew that Moderna was telling the truth about their adverse impact monitoring. Since you're telling me he doesn't have access to the adverse impact monitoring data that gets submitted to the FDA? I think he does. I think he does. Which means when certain stories came out and Dr. Fauci chose to be silent in the face of incorrect information, then he let you believe a complete and total lie.
But
So all of that, like the Cuomo, the killing of grannies, eventually somebody's head is going to need to be put on a block. And that's when the guards will come down. That's when the guard will back off. And they'll because it's not going to be their heads. It's not going to be their heads. As Andrew Cuomo is finding out right now. Once you get on the wrong side of somebody else and you become you're no longer, an inexpendable, then you're on the block next. And these fools who deluded themselves into thinking.
you see, I would be
They were untouchable.
more of a believer if I didn't see repeats of the same thing. So back first we get the COVID scare, right? Nobody's really taking it serious. Spring break happens and all that fun jazz. Then the killer bees come out.
Oh, the killer bees.
Right?
You and this killer bee thing.
No, but this is what happened. Nobody cared about them. So then
I know.
COVID got worse. Now we're coming
We
back
live-
where people are getting fed up with
We
COVID.
live as a society, we live from one crisis to the next.
That's what I'm trying to
One
say.
crisis, you know when that really started in truth? And I mean the constant crisis. Because look, Obama is not to blame for the world's problems, contrary to what some right-wingers believe, all right? But he did bring us to a period of like brinksmanship to brinksmanship, right? And it started with stupid things like continuing resolutions, the debt ceiling, we're going to default. Remember all that, right? And it just, we got used to this. It wasn't always like this. In the good old days, the tyrants hit you with one really big crisis
Yes.
every 5 to 10, and we'd have
And then we would
the
wrap
Gulf of
them back
Tonkin,
up.
the Lusitania, the Cuban Missile Crisis, WMD, all right? I mean, all that. It's like every, couple years. Now we just live from one crisis to the next, and the minute things start to calm down, right, it's like the killer
the next
bees.
thing.
It's like, it's just,
I'm just over it.
this is not how we are supposed to live. We cannot live in a constant state of fear all the time. Whatever happened to, we can't live in a constant state of fear because then they've won. Remember that?
Oh, yeah.
Remember that
was
during
nice.
yeah,
That was a good
the
story.
that was the era of terrorism, and you cannot live in a constant state of fear because then they have defeated us as Americans, right? And everybody agreed with that, from Republicans to Democrats. What they meant was, we don't want you to be afraid, so give us that thing called the Patriot Act and you can feel nice and safe.
Yeah.
They were full of crap.
They used that one real well.
They didn't believe that's what made us Americans. They knew that would sound real good to you. That was the current platitude at the time. You believed it. You truly believed it, and you should. Because Americans should not constantly live in a state of fear. That is not what we were doing here. That is not the great experiment. A constant state of skepticism against the powerful and authority? Absolutely. Our founders thought a constant skepticism was healthy. It's the only way you could keep and preserve what they gave us. But they didn't. They are full of crap. And they just wanted more power. Mm-hmm. Don't let them defeat us. Don't worry, the FBI and CIA will take real good care of you. Give us the Patriot Act. Load of crap.
Joy.
All right, it's time for Bad Habit. We're going to take a 2-minute break.
Get your questions in.
Don't forget, we're going to start polling this weekend. So don't forget to support the Public Polling Project if you didn't already. It is right. You could just go now to the front page of Big Data Poll. And if you scroll down to where the blog is, you'll see some coverage about the New York Post. You could just click on that and check out the cool coverage they did of we had in the New York Post. That was to me, one of the better articles. Even some of the other great coverage we did get, what really stood out, and what I'll always like more about that article, no offense to everybody else who we appreciate it, but what they nailed was the transparency of it all. And that is really what we were going for, the idea that you could do better than this, right? So the cheesy little headlines, candidate A +2 because it's a poll and you have to believe us. It's just not good enough anymore. The industry is suffering from a crisis of credibility among many, many other things, and we can do better, and Americans deserve better. So to me, they really encapsulated the spirit of what we were trying to do in that article. And that's why we highlighted that one. And I do highlight that one more often. Not that I don't appreciate the other coverage from everyone from,
what you really love about that one is because that individual called you an independent.
That is another part. Yes, because look, not to break everybody's heart here, I'm certainly not a Democrat, but I don't like Republicans. And I don't like being called a Republican pollster. It drives me kind of crazy. If my detractors want to know how to piss me off, they can call me like a Republican pollster. Because I can't stand the Republican Party, and if the RNC ever called and asked me to poll for them, I'd probably tell them to stick this book where the sun doesn't shine. I poll not for groups of people. I poll for people and ideas, and that's how I choose to use the talents that God has given me. All right, so I don't want to belong or be associated with an organization.
If I'd call you anything, it would be a constitutionalist.
More so. I love the Constitution. I love the Constitution. But but still, it wouldn't matter. Party labels are bad personally to me. And the transparency thing, Laura, really mattered. I'm the only idiot who took the transparency initiative seriously.
I told you. I mean,
after 2016, I was like, you
what?
Didn't
believe me
we could have done better. It's true. After 2016, I said to Laura, I was like, what? We could have done better. We got some criticism from people who said we didn't show enough of what we're doing. I wasn't going to give our methodology out to everybody under the sun. They can kiss it. It was for our internal model, and that's it. But then because everybody had such bad blowouts, right? Like their track records were so bad, I did think it was incumbent upon pollsters to share more information. So when APOR, the American Association of Public Opinion Research, is what APOR stands for, came out with the Transparency Initiative, I thought it was fantastic. I'm like, you know what? We're going to do this. We're going to participate in it. The only person I saw other than us release the APOR checklist was Spencer. At Emerson. I don't know anybody else who did. I can't name another poll. If you look on CNN, Fox News, even the rest of them, you're going to find what are basic standards of disclosure. That's not good enough anymore. People deserve better. They deserve to know, because a lot of people took those numbers as gospel. They take those numbers as gospel. They don't understand what a sampling error means. They don't understand how a poll could say something, but then a result be different. And now, unfortunately, last 4 cycles particularly, they weren't even close And they are outside the bounds of us being able to explain ourselves. So from this point on, people deserve more transparent information. So they can decide, do I believe Joe Biden is up 17 points in Wisconsin? Do I believe Joe Biden's going to win Pennsylvania by 9 points? Do I believe Joe Biden's going to win Florida by 6 points? If they had the tools, if you give them the tools, then they're smart enough to make up their own minds. Otherwise, we should all be charged with campaign finance violations, because that's all these polls are doing.
That is what they're doing.
It's an in-kind campaign contribution to their preferred candidate to juice their numbers in fundraising.
That's why I would love to have...
And depress the vote of their opposing candidates.
I would love to help these campaigns for free, but...
You can't do it.
I'm sorry.
Some people you fall in love with, and you're like, you know what, I think this is a decent, honest person. However...
I'm not going to jail.
Yeah, I mean, you can't do... That's not... It's the law. And it's like, over time, the media, their pollsters, they basically got around it, pretending they're working for the media organization. I mean, it's a load of crap. All right, so with that, don't forget to support and share the Public Polling Project. Like the page People's Pundit Daily on Facebook if you're still on Facebook, and also subscribe to the channel on YouTube, People's Pundit Daily. Hit that notification bell. That'll let you know when we're going to go live. And if you like the video, hit the like button, because that helps YouTube's little algorithm. All right, so with that, we'll be back in about 2 minutes or so. We'll go over, I know a lot of people did ask me to talk a little bit about Kelly Loeffler in Georgia and give you my take on that. We will go over that, and I'll even tell you what I think you should do if she comes knocking for money. All right? And then we'll hit the Q&A after that. All right? Because it's Freewheeling Friday on Inside the Numbers. All the best, folks. We'll be back in about 2 minutes.
How much you wanna bet that I can get you back inside your head before the summer ends, and spread a little love just for a little fun? I'll make you come back to me before the rise of every sun. Baby, it's meant to be. I know you got a man, but he don't understand. You're gonna be a heartbreaker. You're such a love taker. So just suck me in and you can toss me like a cigarette. 'Cause I just wanna be a bad habit, yeah. There's rhythm in our love, it's impressive, excessive. You can't make this stuff up. My chest beats, it's restless, wakes the neighbors up above. Yeah, baby, come and show me love. Baby, come and show me love. Because you're gonna be a heartbreaker. You're such a love taker. So just suck me in and you can toss me like a cigarette. 'Cause I just wanna be a bad habit, yeah.
Take a one-way ride, steal us away to find a place we can hide. It wouldn't take much to spear for a night, just to give into the need and leave it all behind.
'Cause I know that you know that I know that you want me. You told me, now show me, come blow me away. 'Cause I know that you know that I know that you want me. You told me, now show me, come blow me away. You're gonna be a heartbreaker. You're such a love taker. So just suck me in and you can toss me like a cigarette. 'Cause I just wanna be a bad habit, yeah. You're gonna be a heartbreaker. You're such a love taker. So just suck me in and you can toss me like a cigarette. 'Cause I just wanna be
And we're back. All right, you're watching Inside the Numbers with the People's Pundit. I am your host, Rich Barris, the People's Pundit. Don't forget to follow me on Twitter at Peoples_Pundit. And you can, of course, sign up on Gitmo Life and follow me at People's Pundit, at People's Pundit on Gitmo Life. All right. By the way, for the locals community that is growing, that's fantastic. It's great. That's part of the reason why I decided to just start the poll this weekend, because we are seeing growth. Of course, we'd always like to see more, and we will. But the ultimate goal is to get that community to pay for periodic polling with the cost that it is to sign up, which isn't much. It's like $5 or something, right? If you join the People's Pundit community on peoplespundit.locals.com, then you are already contributing to it. So we try to do it for, baseline cost, which we went over on Wednesday, and we're going to start it this weekend. So support and share the Public Polling Project if you haven't already. All right, with that in mind, what did I say I was going to hit when we came back from there? Let me just briefly mention jobless claims rose to 730,000 last week, which isn't this week. It's for the week of March 12th, and the insured unemployment rate, unfortunately, refuses to budge. That's not going to budge, not much. Under Donald Trump, before COVID, it fell to a low of 1.2, which was very low. I mean, that really showed you it was a tight labor market, but we've never seen numbers like that before. And was stayed there for most of his term until it once in a while would bob down to 1.1, which was set an all-time low, and then it would tick back up and maintain 1.2 for weeks and weeks, tick down 1.1 here and there. That's what it did before COVID. Shot up to an all-time high during the Fauci-induced coma shutdown, and then it was on its way down. And along with U6, was falling at a very fast rate. And how fast was the U6 rate falling? It fell faster in 4 months under Donald Trump post-pandemic than it did in 4 years under Barack Obama and Joe Biden after the recession. Which is why I told you the falling unemployment rate under Barack Obama was a methodological gimmick. It was not real. And neither was the falling unemployment rate for Black Americans, which he tried and his supporters tried to take credit for under Donald Trump. The difference was labor participation and long-term unemployment were heading in the wrong direction, which causes unemployment to artificially fall. Under Donald Trump, long-term unemployment was declining, labor force was rising, and the unemployment rate was falling. That is, and by the way, which you should see a recipe for with that, wage growth, which pushes upward pressure on wages and causes them to rise while the unemployment rate falls. That is a truly tight labor market, not a methodological gimmick by the Bureau of Labor Statistics. In any event, back up to 770,000. That's a gain of 45,000. The consensus forecast, unfortunately, was for 700,000, already still too damn high. But it was 70,000 claims higher than the consensus forecast. Sad. So don't give me this 350,000 month job growth when we were getting 1.5 million on the way back, on the rebound. 350,000 is barely enough to keep pace with population. It's definitely not enough when you have 10 million Americans over out of work and millions of single mothers out of work, which the Census Bureau just elaborated on for some prelim they released about 2 weeks ago. Mm-hmm. It's even worse than it sounds. It's even worse than we initially, when we talked about it on the show initially, a week and a half or 2 weeks ago, whatever, roughly. So with that, a lot of people asked me about Kelly Loeffler's Growing Georgia, what is it? Greater Georgia, mm-hmm. Right? And, yeah.
That was you.
That was me that time. Jim, I'm on the show. Jim, damn. All right. Anyway, a Greater Georgia, which is the former Senator Kelly Loeffler, was defeated by Raphael Warnock in the January 5th runoff special. All right. It is a voter registration drive. And she is warning in a Washington Times article that she got in the Washington Times. She is warning that it doesn't matter who runs, which is what this text message is about. We have been pushing for oh my God, turn that off, silent that. We have been, talking to people and telling them how we think they would fare. And some other people have jumped on the bandwagon. I'm one of them. And what she is arguing is that it won't matter who signs up. I don't care right now.
I was just going to let you know you were
I
on
just
the
want
show.
it off. All right, because it's going to keep texting. All right. So basically, it won't matter who runs. It doesn't matter how qualified or charismatic or, what quality the candidate is, that inevitably the numbers will turn against Republicans in Georgia if Stacey Abrams is allowed to continue unchecked. Okay? And I largely think that's true. However, if Kelly comes knocking on your door for money, I would hold on to my wallet until you see what she does with the money that she could raise from her husband's buddies. No kidding. Mm-hmm. Don't give your hard-earned money. She has plenty of very rich friends. Do not give your hard-earned money if you are a Republican and would like to see Georgia make a comeback for Republicans. Do not give your hard-earned money until you see what she does with other people's money. Believe me, they have the money to lose on an ill-fated project if it so happens to turn out that way. You have to applaud her on at least trying to match the effort. But the fact of the matter is, she wasn't a very competent senator. We'll see whether or not she becomes or campaigner or political strategist. Let's see how she becomes a competent voter registration drive head. We'll see. But she can do that on the backs of her and her husband's friends' dollars before you let her do it on your back. So that's my advice to you on that. The fact of the matter is, folks, they had been relying on the goodwill of Southern Republican hospitality for too long. And they had been told for too long that Stacey Abrams not only needed to be countered, but was up to no good. For people who don't know the backstory on her, in 2014, Michelle Nunn ran against David Perdue. She was one of the voices who told a bunch of rich white liberals that Georgia could be flipped if there was just voter registration drives. Over the years, they gave her millions upon millions upon millions of dollars. 4 years later, she runs against Brian Kemp and loses in a national D10 almost electorate. She still loses. Starts complaining about black voter suppression when the numbers just don't support it. What the numbers do support is that blacks have been voting at higher rates than other racial groups, increasing over time. Period. If she ever had a beef with anybody with purging rolls, which are dirty as hell in Georgia, which we've shown you. I don't know what they purged.
They're filthy.
I don't know what they purged. I mean, I read off probably 150 names before I got tired. That was just Fulton alone. 130 plus change of address and eligible flags. 130,000 plus in Fulton County alone. But if she did have a beef with anybody, it wasn't Brian Kemp. It was the local supervisor of election in that county. Blue counties. Blue counties. That's who would be purging eligible African-American voters off the voter list. Truth is, they weren't ever eligible records. Period. And there certainly was no damn purge. Complying with the National Voter Registration Act of 1993 is not a purge. It's a duty by law. A duty which most of them flagrantly disregard. Disproportionately so in blue areas, as you know. All right, so anyway, she had to do something because she took a lot of money. She hoodwinked a lot of white liberals, white rich liberals, who believed her. And when she lost, she had no choice. Think about it, folks. Donald Trump barely lost 10,000 or so votes in the state of Georgia, even though the rejection rate was nil. She lost by over 40,000 votes and called it fraud. And was fully convinced she won that state. Hillary Clinton, Elizabeth Warren, other prominent Democrats echoed that baseless claim. Nobody got a tag under their YouTube video for repeating it. Nobody got Jack Dorsey and company to put this claim is disputed tag under any of her damn tweets.
Preach it.
It was ridiculous. There were no affidavits. There were no boarded up walls. There were no monitors asleep or on their phone. There were, just on and on and on and on. There were no ballots pristine without a fold. There were no suitcases under tables. There was no testimony from people contacted by people like Matt or I who put in writing under penalty of perjury they never filled or requested that absentee ballot. None of that. But she's allowed to make a claim, go to town for it, and they're going to allow it to happen. No tags, no disputes, no grills by Jake Tapper. And I don't mean to pick on you today, Jake. You just happen to piss me off a little bit more today than normal. Because you really helped in pushing that fraud Fauci like he was some kind of deity. You know? Like everybody's got to listen to Doc. Next time you have Dr. Fauci on, why don't you be a journalist with a pair of
cojones?
You know? Imagine your you-know-what's like exceeding 2 inches. And, imagine that for just a second and ask him about his contradictory comments. Ask him if he knows whether Moderna's adverse impact monitoring claims are real. You ever ask him why he said one day masks were good and then not? Anyway.
Stop banging.
Moving on to, I'm banging. I'm sorry to be banging the table.
The table.
I can't stand that little Napoleon twerk.
I don't like him either. Hey,
I mean,
at least he's somebody I'm probably taller than.
He is one of those people. I'm not a big guy either, as those of you who met me know. But at least I don't have a Napoleon complex. The man feels like he... Laura's like, what?
I'm sorry. I was like...
This man... This man... Oh, I can see it, Laura. This man is like responsible for the misery of millions of people. Or at least he's up there in responsibility. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm,
He's up there. I mean, of course it was a collaborative, it was a collaboration, but he's certainly up there. All right, so let's, it's 12:23. Why don't we start and hit up some questions, but with the full impression that I could go on a rant. Okay?
Well, we all know
you're on
you
figure
will.
8. All right, it's time for Ask the People's Pundit. All right, hit me, Laura.
Oh, wow, that was like a hit to the 70s right there. Rich, what are your thoughts on the Fed? I just know I don't like it as an organization, but don't really know why.
Well, probably because monetary policy was never supposed to have that kind of a role in our country. I'm not opposed to a national bank. I don't like Alexander Hamilton, who really is the father of the Fed. I don't like him. I think that he made too many rich and well-born comments for me. However, I will say this. I do see the at least early argument for a national bank to assume the debt from the war and et cetera, et cetera. What I don't think is that they should have the unilateral power to devalue or increase, the value of currency. Which, of course, is what they don't ask Congress's permission when they engage in quantitative easing. They're always at odds with the executive branch. Everyone pretended like Jerome Powell was like the first Fed chairman to piss off a president under Donald Trump. It's ridiculous. Bernanke was always at, Obama and Bernanke were always at each other. Bush, that's a little different, but there are plenty of other examples. I think the Fed is ultimately, going to be, and not just the Fed, but the European Central Bank, they are the driver of the bicycle theory, which is the theory that you have to keep pedaling the bike basically or else it's going to fall over. So if you look at the EU, look in their case with their central bank, You have to keep adding member nations. Otherwise, it's akin to, what you're going to do to the economy, and the velocity of money is akin to like riding a bicycle and stopping pedaling. What's going to happen? You're just going to fall over. Okay, and you'd see massive inflation, et cetera, et cetera. We're so big, and the Fed's so big. Our effects are so long-reaching because we are a huge economy, that the Fed, I just don't believe power should be concentrated like that in any single institution. And it doesn't matter how many board of governors there are. That's a load of crap. I mean, it's like, what time is tea time? I mean, really. I mean, they're not holding each other accountable. There are descending, hawkish and dovish members, but the dissenting member is always the one who cares about inflation, right, and printing money and debt. The rest of them just think that this system can continue forever, and that's a problem because it's a club, and the club is a globalist club, so they all tend to share the same views, so there really isn't any room for dissent. And you'll notice that those dissenters don't really last that long often, or they're mocked later, right? Yeah. I mean, look, there was a certain presidential candidate who was the head of a regional Fed, and he was a dissenter, and they made him out to be like he was stupid or something, and they mocked his tax plan. I think you guys all know what I'm talking about, right? So, and he passed away recently. But by the way, I just don't, I don't know whether auditing them is the best way, or, abolishing them is the best way. But if you mean audit, by Congress should have at least some input. They handle fiscal policy. So it doesn't make a lot of sense to me that we would have another almost branch of government that's autonomous from the sovereign voter. It doesn't make any sense to me. If it's anti-Republican government. Small r, people, small r. It's anti-Republican government. Yes, you're appointing a president, and that he has to say for chair, or he or she has to say for chair. That's not good enough. This is a giant self-perpetuating bureaucracy at this point. That's not good enough, and I don't think that's even what Hamilton envisioned. Hamilton envisioned the dynamic executive, but he really would have thought the president was the boss of that central bank. He would have given that to Washington.
All day.
Right. When he argued to Washington about it, by the way, I mean, it's pretty clear. Washington bought a lot of those arguments. But nobody believed it would go past the president. It's way out of control now. I don't even think the president has the power to rein in the central bank anymore. They do what they want. Obama tried, and in many ways was a little bit more successful than Trump at bullying their actions. They all do. This fight always have, but they're not really in charge. And then you have these idiots in the media. Dare the president try to influence the Fed? They're an independent. Who the hell said? No, they're not. Number one, just like neither is the Justice Department. All of a sudden, these independent, autonomous central banks and bureaucracy. That is not the case. All right. I mean, Robert Mueller was never independent. Jerome Powell was never independent. But Trump didn't have as much success in influencing policy. But being critical publicly is not the same thing as power, Laura. Like, you shouldn't have to try to bully an appointee into doing what you want. If you're the president, you are the one who is you're the people's president. You make policy, or you enforce. The legislature makes law and policy. You enforce it. I think the whole thing is pretty anti-American. I just don't know what the answer is to it at this point, because they've created a system that they're smart when it comes to this. They create a system that needs, it perpetuates because it needs them to survive. Maybe not long term, but you'd have to go through a period of calamity to get to the other side. And I think, as Donald Trump proved with his 4 years, that there are many, many, many Americans who are really not ready for the change that they say they want. Right?
Yes.
They're not, because many of them couldn't take the boat rocking, and the boat's got to rock if you want real change.
Agreed. Okay, so our next question, Guard of Liberty, thoughts on CCP humiliating Team Corpse, aka Biden.
Yeah, this is going to keep happening, guys. I mean, this whether it's flyovers or the latest, or making your diplomats bend over for rectal, for rectal COVID testing. This is how the Chinese operate, and that's why I told you to go out and get Steigelman's book. Steigelman's or whatever.
I don't know.
Seligman, Scott Seligman. Sorry, I said it. Chinese business etiquette and culture, or whatever the title is, but Scott Seligman. It's a fantastic book. It's a must. It's a must-have in the age of China, which we are in.
Yes.
I hate to say it, but Bill Maher was right. We have already lost. It's just a matter of whether or not we're going to continue to be the losers. And by the way, Bill Maher stole that from Donald Trump. Didn't someone else make the same point Bill Maher made for just last week?
Mm-hmm.
He said, I don't know what this, whole it's like a mirage. It's us versus China. Who's going to win? We already lost.
Mm-hmm. And they didn't even have to shoot one.
They didn't have to fire a single bullet. I mean, folks, when former and I hate doing this because I don't want to sound like the Washington Post. Joe Biden is not free to do what he wants when it comes to China. That's it. I'm just going to say that. All right? They selected somebody to replace Donald Trump. All right? I'm sorry if you voted for Joe Biden and you don't like hearing that. But it's a reality. I tell Trump supporters all the time things they don't like to hear. You're going to have to swallow that because that is true. You voted for somebody the CCP wanted. They're going to continue to embarrass us every chance they get, diplomatically, militarily, and even personally.
Because that's how they roll.
That's how they roll.
Yes. They will take you down from head to toe.
Just keep and poke you on the way down. They just keep poking you.
Yep.
Dork, loser, weakling. That's what they do. And believe me, they've been waiting a very long time for this position. Sadly. And before COVID, they were in deep trouble. Their manufacturing sector was shrinking horribly even before COVID struck. And Trump had them by the shorts. He did. Hey, it's just, again, I'm not saying this, to, making appease Trump supporters or whatever.
Yeah,
it's just
it's
true.
the truth.
It's just the truth. What Trump understood was that the Chinese will try to wait you out. So we put the pressure on them. That's what the tariffs are for. The Chinese have different philosophies, but they understand that Westerners aren't patient. They want a deal. They want it now. But Trump had experience with not just Chinese businessmen. He had experience with how the Chinese work. And that's why he knew he needed to level those tariffs, because they would have just waited him out. And they understood, Chairman Xi he's going to be there, but the next president may not be. So Trump knew he had to really hurt them, with tariffs.
The long game.
Yeah, because it's not just a matter of taking advantage of our system of government, but also our patience, right? And that's why Trump focused so hard on the goods producing sectors while nailing them with tariffs, because he understood he could speed it up. He could make their the waiting game that they play, like Seligman, calls it. He could make their own game painful to them, because you really can't afford to do that when you're the one suffering, right? So you want to wait each other out and trying to strangle the other guy you're in a negotiation with. And what Trump was basically doing was like, okay, you're choking me, reach over your arms, I'm choking you too. Let's see who can squeeze first. And unfortunately for America, Trump was squeezing harder. And they were just about to pass out until conveniently this virus that didn't come from a meat market, didn't come from some guy who wanted to buy bat stew for his wife. That was a fraud too. There is no evidence of that. You take it what you want. I mean, I'm not saying truth is that we'll probably never know the truth, but it was quite convenient for the Chinese that the virus came when it did. Quite convenient. You better understand something about the Chinese, folks. They don't mind sacrificing a couple 100,000 people. That is not a problem for them. I think people need to wake up a little bit. Chairman Xi would cut 500,000 off his population if it meant economic dominance without batting an eye. They're not humane like that. They're pragmatic above everything else. They don't give a damn what the human cost is.
Speaking about China, somebody wants to know, do you think China will take over Taiwan?
Eventually. Yeah,
I think
sadly.
Japan has
If I was Japan, I'd be really worried right now. For those who don't know about the post-Second World War order, and really there's no reason you should, so don't feel funny if you don't, but Japan does not have a military. After the Second World War, they were an enemy, and obviously. They were fascists like Hitler as a system of government. And in the Second World War, they were defeated. We became allies with them after even dropping 2 nuclear weapons. The deal was, you be our friends, you are basically banned from having a military, you have no need for defense, but in return, we will protect you. Okay, I know it's a joke.
Underneath Biden?
Same thing with Germany, by the way, because Germany started 2 world wars. Now, they're not at a friend. This is not a relationship of friendship. They are banned because they are banned from having a military. Germany is not allowed to have a raised standing army. Okay? But in Japan's case, we actually told them as an ally, we will take care of you. Sadly, if I was Japan, I'd be very worried right now. I'd be hoping Joe Biden is 1 term and would go back. But, Abe has got issues, man. And by the way, Abe loved Trump. He did. Abe loved him. He knew it. He knew what Trump meant for Japan, which is that...
safety.
Yeah, it's safety. Right. They have a lot of problems over there. Japan and China hate each other. Always have. They never had a good relationship. The Chinese saw them as oppressors. They thought they were the true kingdom of Asia. I've said this before, but it's worth repeating. All right, that it roughly translates. China in Chinese roughly translates to middle kingdom. Zhongguo is middle, the center, and it means that shows you how they think. That they are the center of the world. They are everything. Like. The rest of the solar system revolves around the sun. The rest of civilization revolves around China. That is how their philosophy is rooted. And it's literally the root word of their country in their own language. So they never liked Japan. And I do think if these aggressions and tests keep going unchecked, and they will go unchecked because Joe Biden doesn't have another option. They have him, folks. They got him. They got him. They doesn't have another option. It will keep going, and they'll pick their moment. They'll pick their moment because they're smart.
Well, right now they're
And
nervous. They're not too sure how we're going to
They don't want to box Joe in a corner to where he has to do something. You know what I'm saying? So they'll do it like they always plan to do it, without a shot. And they'll play the game until they have everybody, not just Joe, but others too, right where they want them. I mean, most of the world would just kind of let China absorb Taiwan anyway. I mean, that's just the truth. We were a lone voice in the superpower world who ever backed Taiwan. So he's just waiting. They're just waiting for the right moment. I sadly for Taiwan, because I know how their heritage and their culture, they don't want to be seen as mainland China and never have. For them, I feel terrible for them. I really do. My heart goes out to them, and even subcultures in like Hong Kong. I mean, they're in deep trouble, or there's no doubt. It's sad. They're in deep trouble.
I just don't like the annihilation of any heritage or.
Yeah, and I mean, well, they see themselves as Taiwanese. Like they don't see themselves as like part of Beijing, like mainland China, and that would mean the end to their national identity. And they do
very much have a national identity. It's like trying to allow Israel to absorb the Palestinians. I mean, that honestly,
there would be an uproar.
They're both from the Middle East, but they're not one and the same. They don't even write the same. Nope. And many in Taiwan kept traditional, but because mainland China was so illiterate, there's no other word. Yeah, well, because they were so illiterate, and then decades ago they took up simplified, and most, when you were walking in China and you're reading signs for a grocery store, anything, they're in simplified in many parts because people don't know traditional. It sounds the same when you speak it. Most of the time it sounds the same, but the characters are more complicated in traditional.
They're pretty.
They are pretty. I even got kits, man. I love it. I always thought it was a birthday present. Yeah, it's nice. But you better know what you're dealing with. It's sad.
All right. M. Hala, People's Pundit Daily. Who can win Michigan governor? And can Don Jr. run for PA?
So, I don't know. I don't know that Don Jr. has a residence there, but I've thought about that. I think he lives, Barnes and I were just talking about this, I think he has some like obscure Midwestern place. I could be wrong, but I mean, he could. I think he would probably be a good candidate in Pennsylvania. In fact, when I talk about how well Donald Jr. walks around with a crowd, in fact, it was Pennsylvania where I first was impressed by how he handled the crowd.
Hands,
he was very, it was Wilkes. I always say it. Wilkes-Barre. I always say it wrong. I believe that's where it was.
It is where it is, but I don't know how it's pronounced.
I used to say Wilkes-Barre, and then people from there were like, it's Wilkes-Barre, and I'm like, really? But okay,
I'll take it.
Yeah, and I think they said Barry. But anyway, it's one of those things. Nevada. Minnesota, Missouri. It's one of those things Rich likes to keep track of. And then, so I don't know if he can, but he'd have to. Of course, you have to be a resident. You don't want to be seen as a carpetbagger. You better make your home somewhere before you try. It's not New York, Hillary Clinton, circa 2000, right? Plus, it's not. Versus Rick Blasio. New York was a blue state. Rick Blasio was going to have a hard time. He had a chance, but that walking across the stage thing. Look, Hillary! Look what you did, Hillary! That killed him. Because she played the victim. Yeah. She was like, oh my man.
I'm just so tired. Listen, women, if you're running...
And then Michigan.
And you want to pull the sex card, get out the race.
Yeah,
all right, I'm over it.
She did that.
I know, all the time.
She did. She wanted to be seen as like pantsuit wearing Hillary, but then she did that with Rick Blasio,
and then the tears. You remember the tears?
The crocodile tears. That was before New Hampshire, because Obama beat her in Iowa. That was New Hampshire. That worked.
I know. I can't.
That was a sympathy vote, man.
Margaret Thatcher should be your mentor.
New Hampshire is I love
Margaret.
I love how she carried herself. I do. Well, not even talking
not her
about
principle.
her opinions,
I'm talking about
how she carried herself
and how she went against all of those.
Sometimes a little bit mean, but you know what? Suck it up, Buttercup.
Men are mean.
Yeah,
women can be mean
ultimately
too.
How she was opposed from her own party, whereby like little beta boys who taught, and they failed anyway, and then they should have just left her there. In any event, in Michigan, the answer is I don't know yet.
To be determined.
I just don't think there's a solid real candidate there yet. I don't. I just don't.
All right, so
next one. Let me get a drink of water.
Yeah. Evan Bliss would like to know: is Susan Wright going to win Texas 6, or is that one too close to call? Oh, that was close. Sorry, they misspelled it. Close to call, given that Trump only won 51-48. Also, who do you see running for the GOP in Arizona? Navajo Nation VP Myron Lizard.
Yeah, I don't. In Arizona, I can answer these real quick.
Yeah.
I will just say this. That Susan Rice is not Joe Biden. So Texas is funny like that. And something like a 6, that would be fun. She's not Joe Biden. Let me just put it that way. So it depends what kind of a year Democrats. You're talking obviously about 2022, which could be a horrible year for Democrats if Republicans get their act together. It really could. I mean, it could be a bad year. They are the party of lockdown. They are the party of school closure, and I smell this souring bad. I do. The sniff of this stimulus up the nose is gonna run out by then. It didn't work for Obama. It won't work for Joe Biden. There's no evidence economic stimulus has any long-term impact on the economy. Never was, never is, and never will be, because it doesn't. So if they're counting on that to carry them in 2022, but they're not. They're counting on HR 1. Oh, by the way, who did you accidentally ban? Did you unban them?
I got him.
Okay, good. I know there's like a fan, like a
like
loyal fan we
there.
meant to reply to and accidentally got banned.
Joel, I love you. I'm so sorry.
Joel, man. That was
I
a
went to
total
hit
accident.
reply and it slipped down one
She
more
went to
and
reply
it's
to you and she was like, uh-oh.
That's why.
How do I undo this?
I was really quiet in the beginning because I was trying to figure it out.
Joel. Yeah, so then there's that. And then in Arizona, you know, I don't think Arizona's lost to Republicans at all. I think if there was normal signature verification, Donald Trump would have carried Arizona. And I also think he would have carried Georgia. I think those are pretty easy cases to make if you look at traditional rejection rates. Now we know, by the way, in Michigan, that order, people contacted me asking, because somebody asked about Michigan before. Michigan may get a little easier for the right candidate because if this ruling stands. Because what this judge essentially said was that Jocelyn Benson broke the law by, this is what the law did. And this is what you guys need to know about signature verification. What she told local clerks to do was assume, to give the benefit of the doubt to the ballot, to the signature, to the validity of the signature, even if they didn't look like they matched. Okay? So that's not the law. The law basically says that, I mean, it has to, I mean, I don't remember the technical term. It's actually in the ruling, but it has to match, guys. And if there is any reason to doubt the validity, a voter does have an opportunity to fix it, but most of the time when they don't match, it's because they don't match. That's why we've seen so many ballots rejected in prior years. And the bottom line is, she took it upon herself, despite the law. Michigan's books say that was a rule that must be changed by the legislature. And by the way, she lied about it, that she wasn't meaningfully changing. It was. And that is why I'm telling you, there is not a question of whether or not, because she's not alone. There's not a question of whether or not election officials scrutinized signatures correctly. They did not. They did not scrutinize signatures the way they did in the past. And I would ask you this, for those of you who don't believe this. Does anybody else ever get the benefit of the doubt? For what purpose would there be a rule to check on fraud or criminality or anything? What purpose would there be to give the benefit of the doubt to something that doesn't match, or a story, an alibi, or whatever? That's why laws are written the way they're written. Because if there is something up, if something doesn't line up, if something doesn't match, you don't just ignore it. You don't ignore it. It is really, it's really, to do something like that is based on almost a principle of lawlessness. Because you're making it the norm to not scrutinize, to not investigate, to not follow the law. And that's not how we conduct elections in this country. It's not how we did it before. And apparently, if this holds anyway, it's going to the appellate court, it's not how Michigan will be conducting their elections moving forward. And I have said before, as many that we found in Michigan that did not add up, and as many as we have told you is estimated based out of the subsample, it's really the one state where you could say maybe Joe Biden would have carried Michigan anyway, because it was a larger margin than the other states. Wisconsin, gone. I mean, that was essentially nothing compared to how many were not subject to typical rules. All right, so go
All
ahead.
right. Do you think Indiana will go blue in the future?
Well, the swing counties in Indiana that would be needed to turn Indiana blue. How do we know? Barack Obama. All right, in 08. He's the only one to show us how a Democrat could swing the state of Indiana. The answer is no. Not right now, anyway. Republicans would have to be stupid and turn away from Trump populism back to Romneyism. Pike, Vigo. These are counties, these are areas where we would need to see movement. Vigo County, for instance, in 2016 was Trump plus 15. Vigo County in 2020 was Trump plus 15. So the answer to that is no at the moment. I mean, at least at the moment. We will see polls that will show these states close. Part of that is people don't know how to poll some of these states. They're hard. Indiana's particularly difficult to poll. They have very strict rules. But it's really, I mean, a lot of that was just hogwash. Mm-hmm. Donald Trump was never going to be 4 points ahead in Indiana. Missouri was another one. Remember the Trump plus 4 in Missouri? That was a joke.
By the way, you said Wilkes-Barre, right? Everybody said.
I did, right?
Yes.
Yeah. Cool.
Let's see. Teresa wants to know what article in Epoch Times that you were referring to. Wasn't that the Washington Post that you meant?
Earlier today?
Yeah. About when you're called independent journalist.
Oh, that was the New York Post.
Oh, New York Post.
Independent pollster.
That's right.
Yeah, that's the New York Post. If you go on bigdatapoll.com and go down to our blog, it's right there. I believe the picture is pins of Trump and Biden or something like that. And then there's that one. But there was actually also several in the Epoch Times in the last couple of days. I mean, I could tweet them out. Usually I retweet them. Ivan or Peter from the Epoch Times. They've done a couple stories on me. Peter did one that was, by the way, Peter, that's another one. That was I didn't mean to leave Peter out there too. But he, you know what, in all these years, this is how I began to poll for the Epoch Times in the first place. After all of these years, Peter was the only one to call up and say, "Can I see your data?" Right?
Yeah.
So all that information that you put on the Transparency Initiative, the checklist from APOR, that's supposed to be to keep pollsters honest. Nobody, whether they praised or smeared me, nobody before Peter ever asked me for that information. Until Peter was like one day, "Hey, remember 2016? You still got this? Can I see it?" And that was incredible to me. Everyone's got an opinion, but nobody wants to do the damn work. Right? Anyway.
Too many Chiefs, not enough Indians?
No, they're just lazy, Laura. They're just smear merchants.
They don't want to do
they're
the legwork.
smear merchants. Twitter journalists.
PJ would like to know, is Russ Vogt and his new think tank legit? He says he is trying to build detailed populist proposals, but it is so hard to tell who worked with or around Trump and is legit or is just using it as a grift.
That's a great, I don't know is the answer, but I will check it out for them. And then tell them to remind me, and Barnes and I will talk about it on Monday.
PJ, remind me on Monday.
Yeah.
And I'll take your
and
question.
Can you just copy and paste that and send it to me, and I'll take a look at it. But you're going to see a lot of these guys. You really are. You're going to see it. As a matter of fact, speaking of the Epoch Times, they called me for a comment on something the other day roughly about this. And I wasn't trying to pick fights with anybody, but I'm like, this one doesn't do a good job. This one is full of crap. It's a grift. You know, this one, I just, look, somebody's eventually got to start pointing things out. Robert is right. We've been way too nice for way too long.
Yep. And that's why we're in the mess we are.
Yeah. I mean,
James would like to know, do you believe Manchin when he talks about the filibuster important from an HR1 standpoint?
That's a great question. And that is, somebody asked me, I think Wednesday, what are the odds I think HR1 will pass? We'll see how principled Joe Manchin is, because the pressure will be enormous. And I can tell you this. I know people who have known Joe Manchin for a long time. All right? People now who are in other battleground states, but from West Virginia, and have known them because he's got a political family. and they tell me Joe is a spineless. I mean, serious. He is a spineless, very run-of-the-mill politician. And if he's pressured hard, he'll cave. If he'll lick his finger and put it in the air and the wind blows in a different direction, he'll go in that direction. I mean, he is a gutless,
Run in that direction.
Gutless little coward, according to everybody that we have spoken to. I personally don't really know him. But he'll do what he thinks he has to do. And that is, honestly, the reason why I'm comfortable enough saying that is because these people have told me this for years. And I observed what they were saying firsthand under Donald Trump, right? I mean, he would go and plead to Donald Trump, kiss his butt, guys. I'm going to be a friend to you. I mean, right in the beginning of Trump's administration, even before Donald Trump took the oath and was inaugurated in 2017, he was telling the president he was going to be a friend. They were going to work together. It's not going to be every Democrat against you. You'll be able to count on me to help with this, and this. He was so full of crap. The minute Chuck Schumer threatened to pull pull on his collar, he caved. He was exactly what they told me he was. What? Watch, Rich. Watch. He's gonna do this. Watch. He'll turn, Rich. He's been talking about a potential flipping party for years. The rumors have been circulating around that for years because every time Joe thinks Republicans are gonna have a good election, he probably considers it. That's probably why you hear that rumor all the time. But go ahead.
With these new voter laws, voter ID, etc., will the legislatures have more courage in 2022 than 20? Will this Michigan ruling, where Secretary of State voter rule change found unlawful, will this help in 2022?
Well, I will say that I can tell you that I don't think it's principle or courage. I think that we have had a lot of contact and a lot of interest from different people who make bills move in state legislatures, asking me, if you did this, how would it look? What do we need to do? But it's not out of courage, guys, and it's like they have come to realize it may be them next. Mm-hmm. That's right. Mm-hmm. That's what it really is. They want to keep their jobs, so they let Trump go down, and they eventually, if they didn't in the beginning, they came to understand what I said, back then was true. It's Trump today and you tomorrow. But they just didn't care enough about Donald Trump to do anything about it. Now they want to do something about it. So I don't know if it's courage. It's political expediency.
I think it's CYA.
It's
like just to cover yours.
And that's why, too, I'm skeptical of what Kelly's doing with the voter registration. Because is it really Kelly caring about what's happening in the state? Or is it that Kelly lost and, benefactors want something returned? They want something. They want an ROI, return on investment. Right? I mean,
yeah,
right.
No. All right.
Water time.
Be Positive from Periscope wants to know, what share of U.S. voting population do you think is really progressive nationwide?
Now, that's a good question. So, what am I doing here? All right, there we go.
The wrong button.
So, I can tell you that there's actually, if you were to just poll people, there's confusion over progressive versus liberal. And some people might tell you they're progressive but not liberal. And some people might tell you they're liberal but not progressive. And if you offer one or the other, then they'll end up in like a moderate category or something like that. Liberal, because that's how we ask, is about 22 to 24%. All right, maybe on a good poll for them, 26, something like that. But it's generally been about a quarter for a while now, or 2 in 10 to a quarter. And conservative has been upwards of 4 in 10, but usually now it's around 35%, something like that, 38. That moderate category is killing Republicans. And the reason why is because the shift in the dichotomy altogether, right? So that spectrum is shifting altogether. To be moderate now in a lot of these metro areas really isn't moderate. That's what they'll say is moderate. But I'm not AOC. I'm a moderate. Well, you're not really moderate. You're still liberal, but they don't want to associate themselves with AOC or something like that. So they'll pick moderate. And educated people tend to be more moderate. The higher the education, the more left and liberal they become. But yeah, that's a great question. I've seen some really good some other pollsters that did a good job that basically will lay out how progressive, within that liberal spectrum. And it's not much. In fact, if you want to hang on one second, somebody just sent me something on this. I wonder if I can quickly pull it up. I don't know if I can, but let me see. Wow, I got a ton of emails again. Oh my goodness, here it is.
So annoying.
Here it is. In fact, I got it. There's a couple PDFs in it. I want to just see what it is. So, out of people who considered themselves to be progressive, it was only 18%. But that, again, that is associated more with being more liberal, maybe. Mm-hmm. So, maybe 16, 18% will say that they're very liberal or progressives, right? And then another single digit whatever will say that they're liberal, right? Because, ironically, there were people in Michigan who would tell us, it was a phenomenon this time too, moderately liberal. Who are you voting for? Donald Trump. What? It was weird. It was weird, but it happens. Just like we saw people who said they were conservative voting for Joe Biden. That's statistics for you. But yeah.
All right. Guard of Liberty, is Kemp going to sign that damn voter integrity bill? Or is he going to be a BI, you know what again?
I suspect he probably will. Why? Well, you know what? I suspect it will be connected to whether or not Kemp thinks he can run again unopposed for real. Mm-hmm. Listen, Trump World is trying to get Herschel Walker. I'm just going to bring this up. Trump World is trying to get Herschel Walker to run for Senate, all right, against Warnock. I actually think that that's the wrong move. Mm-hmm. Herschel Walker should run against first Brian Kemp and then run as a governor because Herschel Walker is a more unifying figure in the state of Georgia. All right. Vernon Jones should run against Raphael Warnock. Mm-hmm. He should run as a Republican. He has legislative experience. Now listen to me, because I know you all listen to me anyway. All right? Because you keep taking my ideas and calling people that we speak to. Right? Just so happens to be like a couple of days we run the show. Vernon Jones has legislative experience. He will make a better candidate for a legislative job. If you take Herschel Walker and put him into the Senate race, Vernon Jones will not make the same kind of a quality gubernatorial candidate to run against Brian Kemp. Do you see? This is a very simple logic. He was already a legislator, which means it's easy to sell him as a senator. Think John Ossoff. Mm-hmm. All right? You will also be putting one African-American candidate against another, which is what I know you want to do. But Vernon Jones is the better one to run against. And then also I will say this. You got to worry about Warnock's base in the Atlanta area. Vernon Jones is much better to put up against him in that area. Much better. Herschel Walker would be a better gubernatorial candidate because celebrities turn business owners, turn businessmen, make better gubernatorial executive candidates. That's why we see them as Governor Ventura, Schwarzenegger, on and on. Ronald Reagan. Pushing Herschel into the Senate race is a waste of talent. Mm-hmm. Herschel Walker, don't listen to these people. Run for governor. Beat Brian Kemp in the primary. You will destroy him. And then move on to whatever Democrat they put up for the gubernatorial election. That is the way to go. You want to be a senator? It's easy to hop as a gubernatorial candidate and then be senator later if you feel like you can make a difference there. But if it's about making a difference for you, you could make a much bigger difference in Georgia as a gubernatorial candidate. Look, sorry, Mr. President, but this is the right way. As usual, the people around you are telling, oh yes, right. As usual, the people around you are giving you the wrong information. The better move for Herschel is to run as governor. Primary Brian Kemp. Let him test his water in a primary. He's going to beat Brian Kemp. You hate Brian Kemp. You want to see Brian Kemp? Here's how I know it.
Yeah, there we go.
You want to see Brian Kemp humiliated and embarrassed and defeated? You want Brian Kemp to feel like you felt? Because it sucks to lose. You know it does. Run Herschel against Brian Kemp. Trust me on this. And send Vernon Jones after Raphael Warnock. I'm sure he will run for it. He is a better legislator. He knows how to make the sausage anyway. Mm-hmm. Okay? Let him go after Warnock and let them spar it out in the Atlanta suburbs. Put Herschel against Kemp. And then move on to Stacey Abrams or Stacey Abrams 2.0 in the election itself. All right? Just trust me on this. Somebody send this to him.
Your son has your phone number. So.
I mean, geez, this is not hard. Legislator versus legislator. Celebrity versus governor. That's how it's done.
Mm-hmm.
That is how it's done. I'm telling you, running him in the Senate is a waste of talent. Will he win? Yeah, probably. Mm-hmm. But it's a waste of talent because Vernon can beat Warnock.
Yeah.
He can.
And then that would be a perfect setup right there.
That's it. Now by the way, you're running a dual African American ticket. I mean, you want to show diversity? You want to show African Americans that you really are a bigger tent? That they really do have alternative, viable choices other than the Democrat, the Democrat, the Democrat. This is how you do it. This is how it's done. Because those two men, if you can convince them both to do it, those two men will work for it. They know how to speak. Let them. Mm-hmm. Don't waste one on the other just because, you know, your Mitch McConnell's buddies are telling you they need that seat back in Georgia. Vernon can take that seat in Georgia, especially if Herschel is running for governor. Come on, folks. You know what? At this point, and I'm sorry, I'm going to end the show like this. If you don't know how to do this job, get lost. If you keep giving bad advice to good people, get lost. You are not helping anybody but your own damn wallet. This has got to end at some point. You're not serving anybody. You're becoming the repeated loser who you 4 years ago cheered on Donald Trump for making fun of. Mm-hmm. That's who you are now. If you told Donald Trump that his margins were insurmountable, go to sleep. Go retire. File for Social Security. Get a job at Lowe's. I don't give a damn. Just stop pretending you're good at this job, because you're not.
And you're hurting our country in the process.
Look, if you really believe in it, mm-hmm. then what comes first? Your pocketbook or the people?
Or your children's children.
Your pocketbook or the people. With that, I will bid you all adieu. Do not forget to watch Don Smith's show tomorrow, or listen to Don Smith's show tomorrow at 12. We're going to have Don on again real soon. We had some really good feedback from having Don. I told you, smart guy, really entertaining. On that show on Saturday. It's noon Eastern Standard Time on Blog Talk. We do our weekly recap. I will, of course, tweet it out. Mm-hmm. Don't forget to subscribe to YouTube, People's Pundit Daily on YouTube. Hit that notification bell. That will let you know when we go live. If you like the video and share it. We appreciate everybody who either supports us however they can. They watch, they share, they contribute.
Word of mouth.
Word of mouth.
We love the love.
And don't forget, of course, to share and support the Public Polling Project. We are going to get started this weekend. I saw one of Rasmussen's questions this week was a little bit too close for comfort. So we have to get out there, and we got to see, we have to see what, the real numbers are. It's that simple. I trust myself and few others. So there you have it. Of course, if you still watch on Facebook, if you still have a Facebook account, subscribe to like People's Pundit Daily on Facebook. You can still follow me on Twitter for now at Peoples_Pundit. Please do. We are, of course, not, going to shut anybody out, and we're not going to cede any territory until we absolutely have to. All right. Everybody have a safe and happy weekend. Enjoy it. Try to enjoy it. Okay, folks?
Much love.
Yep.
Have a blessed weekend.
That's it.
And stay out of trouble.
And stay out of trouble. That's good. She'll be making sure I do as well. All right, all the best, folks. See you on Monday.
How much you wanna bet that I can get you back inside your head before the summer ends and spread a little love. Just for a little fun, I'll make you come back to me before the rise of every sun. Baby, it's meant to be, I know you got a man, but he don't understand. You're gonna be a heartbreaker, you're such a love taker. So just suck me in and you can toss me like a cigarette, 'cause I just wanna be a bad habit, yeah. Rhythm in our love, it's impressive, excessive. You can't make this stuff up. My chest beats, it's restless, wakes the neighbors up above. Yeah, baby, come and show me love. Baby, come and show me love, because you're gonna be a heartbreaker. You're such a love taker. So just suck me in and you can toss me like a cigarette, 'cause I just wanna be a bad habit, yeah.
We can get on a plane and take a one-way ride, steal us away to find a place we can hide. It wouldn't take much to disappear for a night, just to give in to the need and leave it all behind.
'Cause I know that you know that I know that you want me. You told me, now show me, come blow me away. 'Cause I know that you know that I know that you want me. You told me, now show me,